Hey guys, today I want to quickly go over the exam review sheet that I gave you, I guess, yesterday to start. Hopefully, you guys took your time with this. Hopefully, you guys read through this. Hopefully, you didn't need to go back and look at the links provided. Hopefully, you remembered a lot of this. So, today we're going to go over this. Make sure you guys do submit this. Tomorrow is our exam, third 9 weeks exam. So, without further ado, let's check this out. Unit 1, the Enlightenment. I ask you guys, beside each Enlightenment thinker, list 2 ideas they believed in. Thomas Hobbes, strong central government, absolute monarchy. Remember, he believed that everybody was evil. Because of that, we need a government that forces you to do certain things, that holds you accountable for your actions. Hobbes. Next, we have John Locke. John Locke believed in natural rights, limited government. We didn't need a strong government because if everybody is good and they do the right things, you don't need a government that has a lot of laws. And natural rights that you're born with. And then overthrowing government. If government violates your natural rights, you have the opportunity, the right to overthrow that government. Montesquieu, 3 syllables, 3 branches of government. He believed in checks and balances, separation of powers. Hopefully you guys remember those. Be ready for a couple questions about that. Next, Declaration of Independence. This was the breakup letter that we talked about. And if you recall in there, it talks about natural rights. It even mentions overthrowing government. But it was a breakup letter that told America why we wanted to break up with Great Britain, King George. Then there was the Articles of Confederation. There were 5 key problems. Weak central government. No money because they couldn't tax. Think about the ring finger. They couldn't tax. This is the weakest finger, ring finger. Middle finger, arguing among states. 1 branch of government, no respect from other countries. You need to know those 5. Let's keep going here. Federalist versus anti-federalist ideas. Federalists believed in a strong federal government. I asked you guys this question. What color is George Washington's white horse? It's white. Who's buried in Grant's tomb? Grant. Who believes in a strong federal government? Federalists. And they said, look, because we have a strong federal government, we don't need a Bill of Rights. Anti-federalists, on the other hand, believed in a weak federal government. They were anti-federal government. And they said, look, we need to make sure we have a Bill of Rights. That way we understand exactly what the government can or cannot do. Let's keep going. The Bill of Rights. We looked at the first 5 amendments. And there listed are the basic ideas. Be ready for your exam, maybe to identify some of the basic ideas with their amendment. First Amendment, freedom of speech, religion, press, assembly. Then you have the right to bear arms. You don't need to quarter soldiers. Protection from unlawful search and seizure. And then the Fifth Amendment, you don't need to say anything that may incriminate you. There's this idea of double jeopardy as well. The Northwest Ordinance. Oh, yeah, the Northwest Ordinance, 1787. Mama's having some babies. And those babies are the states. How we created those states out of the Northwest Territory. The Northwest Ordinance, its whole goal was how to govern this Northwest Territory. How we create those states. Then in the next unit, we had an increase of production brought about by the use of machines. This was industrialization. And we talked about new energy sources such as coal, steam particularly. Because prior to industrialization, we didn't live in an industrial society. We lived in an agrarian society that was based on farming. Then as a result of things like the steam engine, we started seeing new technologies grow. Then we talked about a group that fights for the rights of a worker, is a union. At the time, governments were typically opposed. The government was typically opposed to it. We also said social Darwinism. It's when the strongest business is going to survive and thrive. I gave you guys this little phrase here. Capitalism is what is practiced by America. We said, look, you're allowed to own your own business. Privately owned business is allowed. You're allowed to make as much money as possible. The government doesn't get involved in the lives of business and economics. No, they keep their hands off. It's laissez-faire. If you guys remember, whenever we had our chain factory, I was not very much a captain of industry. I didn't treat you guys well. Um, I was pretty selfish with my money. I wanted to make sure I made as much money as possible. No, I was more of a robber baron. I didn't care about the environment. I had paper flying everywhere. Uh, I didn't treat my employees very well. Then we went into the progressive era. In the goals of the progressive era, there was a lot of them, but they mainly wanted to fix the problems caused by industrialization. What were some of those problems? Child labor, long hours, low pay, poor representation for people of unions. We talked about forcing people to sign yellow dog contracts, and we said, look, you have to say you will not join a union. And the progressive era is going to fix all these things, these dangerous working conditions, living conditions. There's going to be laws set in place to fix these problems. And then we also talked about Plessy v. Ferguson. That was the bikes. But if you remember, we had two bikes going. Nice big bike, little bike. They both had wheels, they both had tires, they both had a seat. But were they the same? Not really. Separate but equal was the result of the court case. Segregation is legal as long as facilities are equal. Hey guys, after we got back from break, we started talking about imperialism. When a stronger nation dominates a weaker nation. And I said, look, CMM, culture, military markets. We're going to spread religion. We want to establish naval bases. We want to sell our overproduction of goods. CMM, culture, military markets. And then we talked about the Spanish-American War in there too. And you know what? Cuba was burning down our sugar factories, and we wanted to make sure that we had that market to sell our goods to, so we got involved. And we also justified the war by saying Spain violated this thing called the Monroe Doctrine. This is dogs peeing in the hood. Any nation from the Eastern Hemisphere that attempts to cross into the Western Hemisphere, we're going to view it as a hostile action. Finally, we just got done talking about World War I recently. The assassination of the Archduke Francis Ferdinand was a spark that started all of World War I. We talked about the main causes: militarism, alliances, imperialism, nationalism. Look, we wanted to protect our business interests. We wanted to remain neutral to protect our business interests. We also had immigrants at the war. We said, look, government is getting involved in the lives of business. We said that companies were being forced to create certain war goods. Government was asking people, don't eat certain foods on certain days. Government was changing even the time of the day with daylight savings time. We started seeing more women work. We started seeing taxes increase. Government was getting involved in extreme measures in the lives of people. We talked about trench warfare, new technologies, the U-boat, all of this. But another thing you might need to remember here, the Treaty of Versailles ended World War I, 4 key provisions of it. Germany had to accept full blame, pay reparations, forfeit land, and shrink the size of their military. Finally, there's this. And we just started talking about the 1920s, and we're going to talk more about the 1920s leading up to the Great Depression here soon. Women, called them flappers, and we started seeing the growth of mass media. We started looking at the growth of heroes. We said that there were all these famous people that were coming about. Charles Lindbergh, first to cross the Atlantic. Babe Ruth, baseball hero. All these famous heroes became as a result of a growth of the national pop culture because of newspapers, radio, and film. And the last one is this.